G'day YouTube, how's everyone today? Finished work on my way home, thought I'd make a video. At the request of a comment that I had on one of my videos when hitting the wall in Asia. Someone out there asked me about, well, what's your opinion about driving a motorcycle in Vietnam or scooter? And what do you think about that? So today I'm gonna, it sort of triggered me. I've got a lot of experience with that, and if you've seen the thumbnail, yes, I had a Vietnamese driver's license, and it's legit. Well, it was, it's expired now, and did have one for a long time actually. I was quite fortunate in a sense where my employer at the time, which was ASET, because I was full-time, were able to wrangle paperwork, visas, etc. So I could actually go out and sit that test, and I'm going to talk about that test as well. But today we're going to be looking at, the stresses of riding a motorbike in Ho Chi Minh City, and in Vietnam in general. First thing I want to say is, riding a motorbike in Vietnam in general, if you're outside the big cities and you're not using it to commute every day for a decade like I had to, is very enjoyable. And if you ever get the chance to do a trip around Vietnam on a bike, I highly advise it. It's a great country. There's great landscapes. There's a variety of landscapes, great people, interesting characters. If you can, do it. But if you're working there, like I did for approximately a decade, and have to commute from, well, if you had a look at the thumbnail, had a look at my license, from Tan Da, Binh Nguoi, where I used to live, was quite an experience, if I can say the least. And a lot of people don't realize over a lot of time that the bike commute in Vietnam, especially if you're living in the burbs like I did, the suburbs, can be quite challenging at the least. And I'm going to talk about today why driving a bike in Vietnam long term will drive your stress levels to the roof. And I'm going to give you reasons why, based on research, based on evidence, not just my opinion, but I'm going to it's been a long day. I'm going to throw that in as well. So I hope you like this. If you've got a license, you're driving in Vietnam at the moment, and you actually do hold a license, put a comment in the box below so you can share your experience with driving, or you're driving unlicensed. What is it? Okay, first I'm going to talk about the research behind that before I get into my story and how I actually got my license, did my license, and some of the experiences, both funny and very, very stressful. Let's get into it. Firstly, one of the cons, loud, constant noise, beep, beep, beep. If you're living in Vietnam, you know what I mean, or any Asian city. Did you know, based on research, that over a period of time, your sympathetic nervous system, that is, will be constantly activated. Your cortisol will be constantly high over time. Adrenaline will be running every time you hit the road. And over the years, it will be hard to deactivate that nervous system in order to get it into parasympathetic nervous system. So your sympathetic, sorry about the pronunciation, it's been a long day. The sympathetic nervous systems will be constantly activated, and that is going to be a real issue. And then add on the other stresses that I've mentioned in other videos, and you will eventually hit the wall. But if you're not driving a bike and you live close to your work, or if you're not working, or if you're retired and you're living in the countryside like Da Lat, for example, or Da Nang, it's going to be a different experience. I get that. I've had a few comments saying, well, my experience is not like that. I get that. It's in the big cities. You're looking at Hanoi, and Ho Chi Minh City is where you're going to have the issues. And other cities around Southeast Asia, Jakarta, Bangkok, places like that, even Phnom Penh is a problem too. So You got to sit back and think about that. You honestly do. Like, over time, I'm not talking about people there for a few years. I'm talking about long-term expats, you know, riding your bike around Ho Chi Minh City, for example, and it's going to take a toll on you. And of course, you got to suck up stress, but when you're sucking stress up every day, as well as the air pollution, you're going to have issues. So that is one reason among many, and there's many of them. I'm not going to list them all, but I like to put a bit of research behind my my videos. I know they're for informational purposes only, but they are backed on research. I don't just wing everything. It is based on research. Okay, so that's one good point, something to think about. There's a heap of others. I'm not going to go into them. I want to keep this short. But how did I get my license? Well, I've already briefly mentioned that. The process of getting that, you need the paperwork, you need that visa, you need that temporary permanent visa, as I did in the day. And then you're going to rock up with help. Although my Vietnamese language skills were pretty good, I still needed a little bit of help, because you know, a lot of people, if you live in Vietnam, there's different dialects, north, middle and south, plus the west. So I lobbed up to that test center. It's like a go-kart track. You drive around it for 10 minutes, and then they tick you off and you got your license, and then away you go. And that it was like a circus out there. There was clowns everywhere. It was quite comical. I did take a photo back in the day, and I've lost it. I was trying to find that so I could post that one, but unfortunately I couldn't. But I put the thumbnail of my license up there for proof that I did have one. I did have it for quite a while. So you get your license and away you go. It was pretty easy. It was like the old days in Bali. You drive around a few cones and they give you a license. Everything's changed now. But if you've got a license now in Vietnam, please drop a comment. I'd love to know if that's still the case. It would be very, very interesting. So you get your license and away you go. Of course, I did not have my license for quite a few years, and I used to run the gauntlet. So if you're running the gauntlet at the moment, you know what I mean. What I mean by running the gauntlet is those police setups. Now, I did get caught. About, I think, you know, I was asking my wife how many times I got caught just with her alone. I did get caught at least by myself about 3 or 4 times. 2 of those times I did pay the cops off. It was about 100,000 dom, I think, 150,000 dom. I never spoke Vietnamese to them. I was always advised never use any type of language skills. Act dumb. These days I know it's different. You can use your camera. A lot of people say put your camera on and they'll let you go. That does work. There's a few YouTubers out there that have done that. It has worked. They've got quite lucky. Good on them, fantastic. Back in the day, we didn't have that luxury. We had mobile phones, but not the technology we do today. So you run the gauntlet. Now, when I got caught with the wife, that's when it even got more problematic. So then, like, they keep you there for ages. They want to lock or impound your bicycle. If you've ever seen the scooters that have been impounded, there's just so much corruption. They'll sell them off, especially if you're a foreigner. Drop a comment if that's happened to you. So you're running the gauntlet. That adds to your stress over time, especially when you got to get to work, you're running late, or you're going home, you're tired as hell, and you're in that traffic. So the police. The other one, especially for people with no, very limited language skills, is the old flat tire or the breakdown. You're running the gauntlet. You find those guys at the corner. They're on every corner. They're everywhere in Ho Chi Minh City. You lob up, you point to your problem, and away you go. And they'll charge you expat rates. And if you've got a bit of knowledge, how much it is, or maybe you got a friend that speaks Vietnamese well, you'll be able to haggle them down and get away with a reasonably cheap price. Again, flat tires, it's common. I had plenty of those. I used to drive the old Honda Wave, so I never really had any breakdowns. The old Honda Wave go forever. So I bought a brand new one at the time. You can't own that. You had to put the license in someone else's name. So I put it in, at my time was my girlfriend, which obviously became my wife later on. So I put it in their name, so I had no dramas. So breakdowns, flats, running the gauntlet with the cops is always an interesting one. I've had the experience. Never speak Vietnamese. You might disagree. Write a comment below. I'd love to hear what people have got to say and if they've still got their license. The other one, the one that really did my head in at the end of my journey or stay in Vietnam was the monsoonal season. I used to live in Bin Voi Tourist Park, right next to that, about 3 houses down. You know, the rent was cheap as chips. It was great out there. It was right near the Saigon River, right near that park. And during the week, I just go in there and have a coffee, etc. Problem is, the monsoonal season, the floods, the amount of times that I had to push that bike through that flood, and sometimes it was up to waist knee deep, and you're going through effluent, i.e. shit, okay? Further to that, you'll see rats going past, and one of the closest encounter I had with wildlife was a snake, and it was, and I'm no snake expert, but a cobra. So I'm not, I don't know, look, I can't remember what type it was, but I had seen a lot of snakes out there. In fact, my wife had got bitten by a centipede and I had to rush her to hospital. That's how dangerous the critters can be out there at times. So the monsoonal season, what's your opinion about that? Please tell me. Have you had to experience pushing your bike through, you know, knee deep, waist deep water when you can't see what's on the bottom? Lucky I knew the roads quite well, but you got the critters around, the rats, the snakes, etc. That was always a period of time I really hated, and it did me head in. It eventually drove me back into town near RMI University was the last place I lived in town, because the flooding got so bad. The wife had problems. When I had a child, it was just getting too dangerous. So that was the other issue. That's, again, it just used to raise the stress levels. You know, going to work, you're dressed up in, your office attire, let's call it that. Excuse me. We're back to the heat again. Yeah, we've got the hot weather back again, guys. So you're in your office attire, and then you get your downpour, and then you get all the motorbikes will all pull over, everyone puts their poncho on, and away you go. By the time you get to work, you're drenched, your trousers are wrecked, your socks. I used to always carry a pair of socks, pair of shoes, and my backpack on my motorbike or scooter, my Honda Wave, in order to avoid that. You really get wise to that. So they're the issues that really drive your stress. Look, I can look back at that with also fond memories, because it's an adventure and you had to suck it up. But over time, it just wears you down. And you know, that 10-year period, you know, last few years of that, you used to watch the weather and go, oh, is it raining outside? Is it raining? You know, it would do your head in. You might disagree, that's all good, but most people that I used to work with, they're all the same. So think about the locals, the people who've got to live there forever. You know, they just got to tough it out, suck it up, and away they go. It is what it is. But yeah, it's something I look back on and laugh at. But at the time, because I was going through a few other issues, when I did hit the wall at the end, it wasn't sort of a really laugh. You know, I didn't really get a laugh about it, I should say, at the end of my time in Vietnam. So these days, what's happening on the ground as a tourist, I'm not really sure. When I go back there, I don't get on the bike no more. I take a taxi, I take a grab bike. I just don't do it no more. My license is expired anyway, and I just can't be tossed. I've got a lot of friends that live there still, and they've done the same thing. A lot of them don't use the bike no more for a variety of reasons. They've got the booze bus now, well, what we call in Australia the booze bus, breathalyzers. I heard they're more prevalent. It's still a bit of a hit and miss. Back in the day, you'd see some crazy things. People would drink and drive. I guess that's what the adventure was as an expat, because in Australia, it's a real nanny state. You could go to Vietnam, in Asia, and you could get on the beers and drive. Of course, I do not, advocate that. But let's face it, people take risks, especially being a young bloke. You take risks. Okay, I'm going to stop it there. I hope that gives you a little bit of insight, especially one of the fellas who asked me about that, my insight to driving a bike a scooter in Vietnam for the length or the time that I did in Vietnam. That's my take on it. Look, there's a list of other cons. Do your research. You'll find out over time that this is not good for your health. In fact, just a side note, when I first moved to Vietnam, there was no helmets. No one wore helmets. I actually did, and a few other guys did, and everyone used to poke fun at us. The locals used to get a great laugh. That's another story. I'll leave it there. Have a good day. Get your head in a good space. Do yourself a favour. If you live in Asia, get into nature. Get out of town when you can. Until next time, peace out.